Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Lovely. We're so happy to have you. It is my honor and distinct privilege to welcome all of you that have joined us to BVI Lit Fest 2025. My name is Rochelle Smith. Good morning and welcome. It is a true joy to stand before you today, where we will be in the presence of storytellers, readers, artists, and dreamers, each of us carrying stories that have shaped who we are and how we see the world. This year's theme, Long Story Short, reminds me of gatherings of elders here in the Virgin Islands, where stories aren't just told, they're performed. We've heard them on porches, in classrooms, at sea, in song. We've seen how stories shape identity, build community, and spark change. A simple conversation can become a tale of suspense, comedy, and wisdom. And just when you think the storyteller is done, he or she leans in to say, long story short, and then delivers the punchline that makes it all make sense. That is what we are celebrating over the next few days. The way that storytelling turns everyday life into legend. The way a few words can carry the weight of history, humor, heartbreak, and hope. Whether it's through poetry, film, music, or prose, we honor the voices that know how to say a lot with a little and say it beautifully. We welcome students, teachers, counselors, writers, filmmakers, musicians, and thinkers who will share their own long story short. Each one a gift, each one a spark. Over the next few days, we will hear from brilliant minds and bold hearts. We will gather in this auditorium, the LRC, and other community spaces to share stories that connect us across generations and geographies. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, and maybe even cry, but most of all, we'll listen. To our visiting artists, thank you for bringing your stories to our shores. To our local creatives, thank you for keeping our culture alive and evolving. And to everyone that is here this morning, thank you for being a part of this unfolding narrative. So let's begin. Let's celebrate. Let's tell our stories, long and short, and let them echo far beyond these islands. Welcome to BVI Lit Fest 2025. Thank you. So to get us started this morning and to keep us on time, I'm going to call on the members of a wonderful panel. This panel this morning is Narrative Remix, Storytelling Across Media. And on this panel, we have Mr. Kamau Georges, musician extraordinaire. We have Nadia Turnbull, a creative who is doing amazing things. We have Miss Sandra Ward, who has done amazing work in these Virgin Islands, telling stories in different ways. And we have Adriana Soveral pulling everything together. When they come on here, they're going to tell you a little bit more about how they tell stories and what they do. But what I need you to do, my dear friends, is to warmly welcome them, give them your engaged, attentive gaze, and if there's opportunity, to engage them in conversation. So can you join me in welcoming our very first panel, Narrative Remix, Storytelling Across Media.
Hey, there we go.
Good
Good
day.
morning, everyone. I'm
Good morning.
Adriana. So we're gonna just
It's a,
sit,
it's a
get
good thing I put
comfy.
lotion on my ankles.
How's everyone doing? A lot of high schoolers. All high schoolers, right? Most. Some from the college? No? A little bit? All right, well, without further ado, my name is Adriana Salvaral. I am the moderator for this morning's panel, and I have some lovely panelists here. I've had experiences with all of them, um, know them very well, and I'm just grateful that you all have me here for this opportunity. So, the panel, we will be discussing the topic narrative remix, storytelling across media. We'll be exploring how stories shift, evolve, and take on new life as they move across different mediums, whether through music, policy, communication, animation, campaigns, or cultural expression. Storytelling remains one of our most powerful tools for connection and identity. So we have these three remarkable creatives and communicators. Miss Ward Collin is like, I'm not in communications anymore. I'm like, Miss Ward, yes, you are. Like, we communicate every day. We send messages, we talk to our friends, we talk to ourselves, we talk to a higher power, and that is us engaging in some type of communication. I mean, I asked the Lord, I was like, Lord, what's this for me today? This is a story I have even with my God. And so we would like to tell this story and how it remains one of the most powerful tools for connection and identity. I'll just give a brief bio about our panelists. Kamal Georges is one of the BVI's finest musicians whose work as a jazz saxophonist, music producer, songwriter, and record recording artist continues to garner local, regional, and international acclaim. He has performed at the world famous Apollo Theater in New York City and has shared the stage with notable musicians such as the reggae band Third World, trumpeters Roy Hargrove, Darren Barrett, and Rashawn Rose or Ross, saxophonist Gerald Albright. Oh, I know that one. Ron Blake, and the list goes on and on, performing for celebrities, some of our favorites. Let's give a round of applause for Kamal Georges.
Thank you.
Then Miss Sandra Ward. I know I should have started with your years, but I'm going to just go straight.
No, no.
She is the current cabinet secretary for the government of the Virgin Islands. She is a seasoned public service professional with over 25 years of experience in policy, management, administration, communications, and public relations with the government. Her career spans several roles, including Chief Information Officer, Director of Communications, Deputy Secretary, and Acting Permanent Secretary in the Premier's office. Give it up for Ms. Sandra Ward. And now, Nadia Turnbull. Hi, Nadia. Nadia is a dynamic, and I must say, one of the most talented people that I am so grateful to know and have her number in my WhatsApp. She is a marketing and communication specialist, multidisciplinary creative based in the BVI, with over 8 years of experience shaping compelling brand narratives at the intersection of marketing, animation, and cultural storytelling. Let's give it up for Nadia Turnbull. So thank you all for being here. And we're just gonna go straight into questions. Let me double check my, I don't even see them. Oh no. All right. So I'm just gonna ask this first question, and I think who was ever compelled to answer it, please indicate so. Storytelling, question number one. Storytelling is at the heart of everything you do. How would you describe your relationship with storytelling in your field, and what first drew you to it?
I can answer that one. For me, what first drew me to storytelling is actually my love for reading. So, so when I was much younger, my house was filled with books, and I would pick up and read anything I could get my hands on. And every time I read anything, the worlds that I would create in my head, I would build all of the lands that they would describe. I would picture the characters that they would describe, all of those things. And when I ingested those stories, I was part of the storytelling process in a sense because I, in turn, created the scenery within me. And over time, doing that a lot, you yourself build an urge to put that same creativity out back into the world. You think about, okay, I went to school today, this is what happened, I want to go home and write my own little story about it, and then I want that same experience. I want that to take that experience and let somebody else in on my life or something I thought about or something I imagined. So that's what drew me into storytelling reading first. And over time, that just built with everything I did. If I went and danced or if I played an instrument, like I played saxophone in school, and you just want to create your own version of things. And that's a form of storytelling.
Nice. I played this also sax too, you know,
Hey.
until maybe grade 8 and I give it up. Miss Watt,
Right. So
for you,
a
like,
two-part. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's,
yeah?
It's a two-part question. So I think, like Nadia, I'm going to take the second part first,
Mhm.
and then come to
Like, what drew you in?
yes, what drew me in, and I wonder. I don't know that I can pinpoint what drew me in, but I know that my mother often reminds me that when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I will always, she will hear me in the house from room to room with a newspaper, and I'll always be pretending to be reading the news. I do know that I consider myself to be a news junkie. I am fascinated by what happens globally. The compelling stories that are told, and if you can imagine that every time I see protests overseas or there's some major conflict, I have this desire, like, I wish I were there to be able to tell that story. And I know some people might think that, it's quite a risk, but to this day, I still have that desire. When I look at CNN, boy, I wish I had that opportunity to be in the crowd, to be able to tell the story of what's happening live on the scene. So I don't know if I can pinpoint what drew me, but there, there was just something about the news, about stories, and the way they would shape behavior, the way that not only behavior, but even shape policies. Those who have been able to bring about, those who advocated for certain wrongs and then were able to get that legislative change. So I would say that early on, there were the makings of me wanting to tell a story. And you mentioned earlier that I said, oh, I'm no longer in communication. And yes, I did say that. But then I realized even in my current role as Cabinet Secretary, I continue to tell stories because we release the decisions made at Cabinet. So the decisions are telling the story of what the Cabinet did on a particular day. And I think it's important that people continue to understand. So it's not a story going to say, well, Jack and Jill went up the hill, but it's a story about saying that the Cabinet made a decision that's going to help to make people's lives better. And then the first part was about the relationship.
Yes.
My relationship. So over the years, and I would have to put this in the context of being a public officer. Um, as a public officer, we are to be apolitical. So you stay out of the politics. So I think the relationship with storytelling has helped to hone my skills, helped to shape the way I would craft messages for whether the premier or ministers. Because still, although you're apolitical, you must, as a public officer, still be sensitive to the political environment within which you work, because you are dealing with the premier ministers who are elected officials. So they're there because they have made a promise to the people. So recognizing that when you craft your messages, when you're telling your stories, that those stories should also preserve the image or the reputation of government, but also show how this will impact and make people's lives better.
Yeah. Kamal, you like to add to that?
All right. Um, so I am a musician, artist, writer. So my um, sort of foray, let's say what attracted me to storytelling, if I go back to when I was, let's say 12, starting high school, my first kind of love as it related to storytelling was in the music. You know, I fell in love with hip hop music, you know, and just the lyrics, just how guys would just like write these things. And when I'm listening to the music, I was not a child sitting in Tortola. I was I was someplace else experiencing. It took me on a whole journey. So it took my life that was like this and made my life feel like this because I could now sort of ride the wave of their stories. So I saw how someone else's story, even their creative story, could expand my story. So that became the soundtrack to my day. All right. And so then I started like writing at that time. And then I got into, obviously, at the same time, I started the music part of it, and which we see how in obviously music enhances, lots of the things that we watch on TV and everything. And so I've gotten into so I fell in love with how I can influence your story. In other words, how I can write a piece of music or perform in a specific way or write a lyric or a line or come up with a slogan or a catchphrase or something that now hooks into the listener, and then that now affects their life to where they heard it and they can't stop singing it, right? So, um, you know, so I've been very active in writing jingles locally. For example, there must be some jingle I've written that you've heard, right? And in on the international scene, doing things with, from the music production side. Sometimes I would only be able to make the music, and that music has to evoke enough of a emotion that when I collaborate with another creative, that sparks them to create a beautiful story and an experience. So sometimes that's what it would be, and sometimes it would be an idea, and it would spark collaboration. So I fell in love with the arc of that sort of lyrical story and the power that we all have to not only tell, sort of report on the story that has happened, but change the story that is happening with the story that we tell. So I hope that.
Oh yeah, that helps. You said that the music, you weren't physically where you were, but it
Transported me.
right.
Right.
Okay. How many of you feel like the music transports you? No? Yeah? Put your headphones on so you don't talk to anybody. Put them on. Put the two of them on so they really don't talk to you. And even if the volume low, just watch them and they may just walk away and say, she can't hear me. So I want to bounce around in my questions a little bit because since our audience is a younger audience, I want to talk about the digital era and where we are with streaming and social media and this constant, instant content. Uh, do you think storytelling has become more accessible or more diluted? Are we evolving or are we losing something along the way?
All right.
Anyone?
If
Ms. Ward? Oh,
I would say both, more accessible and also diluted. I'll say why. More accessible because there's a plethora of platforms today. Um, you have a YouTube, you have Facebook, you have podcasts, um, and diluted because when you view certain things, I think that people are not taking in some cases, not taking the time to understand even the impact of what they're communicating or the story that they're telling, not taking the time to be mentored, not taking time to learn the craft. Because I believe, storytelling is a gift, but don't underestimate formal training as well. And I think that there are disadvantages and advantages. So I would say both. It's more accessible, and I do believe there's a dilution as well.
I agree as well in both. It's more accessible. In other words, the rate of sort of consumption of stories has gone up exponentially. So we have all the short form platforms, the TikToks, the YouTube shorts, and then you have the longer form, and you have your streaming services, Netflix, and all these. So guilty. I could sit down and binge 3 seasons in a weekend. So the rate of sort of consuming of stories and narratives in all the different feeds that we have has gone up. So in that, when something is, law of supply and demand, when something is in high supply, we tend to value it less. So if you look at that as a form of sort of dilution, then I could say, yes. In other words, so much is happening. It's like the news cycle is so fast. It's like you don't take anything as seriously as before. Whereas when it was, a lot less, when I would get that one CD that I had to fly to Puerto Rico to buy, I'm gonna play that one CD to death because I can't get another one right now. But when I could just flip to 1 million songs on my phone, I don't care. You know what I mean? So there's a difference in the experience.
Y'all know what a CD is, right?
They're like, what is that?
Oh, just making sure,
Okay. I was supposed to say cassette, but I didn't want to go that far back. But
Well, look, listen, records are coming back. Records are coming back. So It's on my Christmas wish list.
all right. So that's me. I think it's both.
If I were to answer the evolution portion of the question, or if we're losing something, I agree with both of you guys. We are consuming way more content, way faster. Our attention spans are actually going down. And with that, I feel that we don't have much time to spend our time on things that we don't, like. And with that, I think that we actually have the opportunity to pick and choose exactly the things that speak to us. When you have your feeds on social media, they're oftentimes tailored to you, and that's the marketing side. You would probably swipe 10 videos, but there's going to be one that you're going to watch over and over. You're going to go and you're going to click into the comments. You're going to interact with it. And with that, you get to build a community, people that are like-minded. You get to connect with them more. And I feel, in a sense, that's evolution of you finding your tribe on the global stage. You creating an atmosphere or an ecosystem within you or in your environment and friends and such, that you guys get to bounce off the same ideas, you get people to agree with you or disagree with you when you need it. And then also you get to relate so much more to the wider world. Like, I wouldn't say how long ago, maybe like 100 years ago, my world here in the BVI would be also small unless I traveled. I wouldn't get to know what's happening in Gaza, for example. You know what I mean? But now we can relate on those things because it's on social media. My story as an islander could be much more round because I get to say what my experience is living in 2025 with everything that's happening in the world. So I think that, yes, we are consuming more, but I think it's to our benefit in whichever perspective you want to take it at. Yeah.
And just to underscore the power of what she just said about 100 years ago versus now, I mean, just think about that. Like 100 years ago, if the king of some country wanted to get a message out to everybody, that was not something they could easily do. Nowadays, any one of you with a phone, you can broadcast to the world. Like that, like just kind of understanding the power that is.
Yeah.
You can communicate to the world, sitting in your bedroom, wherever. And it's an amazing power.
And your people will find you wherever they are in the world.
Yeah, your tribe, like you said, your tribe will find you. Your FYP. I mean, we already said the phones are listening, so I'd be like, listen to me.
Yeah.
Find me this later. Go to sleep, wake up. It pops up in the ad. There we go.
I do think that
Christmas shoes.
there's also a challenge coming up where you have to sort of decide which side you're gonna fall on more. The consumption side, because there's so much, you could just drown in consuming everything. And I think there's a part of us that doesn't get fulfilled unless we also have a strong creative side where we're contributing. And sometimes you have to kind of make that decision. I'm gonna be a creator. I'm gonna contribute, and I'm gonna sort of have my focus be on contribution, or else you kind of could just consume and consume and consume and consume, and it's sort of, when you don't participate, it sort of lowers your self-esteem. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, because you see all the wonderful things that are happening, and then you feel like you're not a part of it.
Peer pressure or pressure?
Yeah, and it's all the wonderful people, and all of them are sharing their stories, and then you go, I don't have anything to share. But you have to kind of decide to grow, decide to contribute, decide to get better at doing that. And then, I think these are two different identities that deciding to be a creator or a contributor is a very fulfilling thing to do, although it's challenging. Yeah.
So then, what do you say to, there's different generations of people, and what do you say to those that say, like, maybe the younger folks are wasting their time, you're wasting your time with that phone, or you're wasting your time with the internet, as opposed to what Ms. Ward referenced, going out and learning the craft before even creating. Podcasters will come up and say, I want to do a podcast on cheese, and they go on this long rant about why they do or don't like cheese. However, they'll then credit and say they didn't study journalism, they may not have that skill to do the research about maybe who made the cheese, but then they come and critique the cheese. You know what I mean? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? So how do you translate that in music? How do you help in your music creation process in translating that to your audience?
So I'm trying to go back to the first part of your question. You're talking about
in training and getting training in what you specialize in, as opposed to just creating willy-nilly.
I do believe it's, once again, when I look at training and development, I look at that as like, it's a privilege, it's like a luxury. In other words, to be able to spend time developing myself or practicing or training.
Let the board take record that we are commencing this hearing.
Sorry, you're okay? I think they were just testing something. Go ahead.
Okay. So I look at that as something that is something I get to do for myself. In other words, like growing and training and getting some coaching on something. So that's a very enjoyable experience. Some people look at it as like a chore, right? I look at it as a great thing. So I absolutely recommend that everybody continues their education. Even when you leave school, if it's something you care about doing, like learn that, get a coach, like continue to develop yourself and sharpen your craft. To this day, I am considered a professional in different things, but I still develop those things. So I definitely think that that's something that should continue to be an ongoing thing. But going back to your cheese comment, my daughter was sharing to me some videos, this thing they call mukbang, where a little tiny Asian lady will just sit down and eat a table full of food, and millions of views and sponsorship. Who am I to say? Who am I to say, right?
Right.
That isn't a viable career path. I don't think it's good for your stomach, but obviously people are watching it. It's entertaining, right? And it has a economic engine behind it. So, there was no class in school on mukbang, but it's working. So, there's different paths as it relates to, how you approach that, and what we might think is, what you should learn. And I look at it like, it's like we all grow up in a different pond, and they come up in a certain sea that they're swimming in.
Okay.
So everyone we're looking at here, they grew up when, like, let's say, for example, like the iPad already existed.
Right.
So as a baby, they were on an iPad. That's not the sea that I grew up in. So they grew up in a different pond, and they're going to approach that in the way that because that's the world that they need to sort of grow into. And I look at it like they're gonna do that differently than we did because out of necessity.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. So Miss Ward, I call Miss Ward because she's one of my first interaction with training into the field of communication. So it's a little hard for me to call her Sandra. I don't know, what that. We could be, but I hold her to that standard. Like she's Miss Ward. So in your experience throughout your career, you've often had to craft stories for government officials like you highlighted. But I want to ask, how did you balance your authenticity and strategy to ensure that your messages connected to your audience?
I'll go back to something I said earlier about being a public officer and being a political. You have to be neutral and impartial.
Say that a little louder. Neutral and
Impartial as a public officer. But we're so privileged that we can vote, right? We can still vote. But it's important, it was important, it still is important that I learn how to ensure that authenticity and strategy coexist. Because it goes back again to what I said. I have to be sensitive to the political environment within which I am working, even though I have to be neutral, because the premier got elected because he and his party got elected because they made a promise to the people. But I am not going to craft a message to say, remember when I was on the campaign trail, I promised you whatever. But they have been successful in achieving many things. So taking that one achievement and crafting it in a way that, again, the public can see how it improves their quality of life. So I have to always be guided by the fact that I am indeed a public officer, remaining neutral, but seeing how authenticity and strategy can coexist.
And I'm telling you, Miss Ward, she's a pro. If there's anyone I feel that I may not know what side she lies, that's Miss Ward in the middle. She, was it blue, red, bread? That's Miss Ward. She's done that very well over the years, for sure. And now my question to Nadia is, your work blends marketing, animation, Nadia flies drones. I mean, how do you navigate between creative expression and then strategic communication? And then you could add in a little bit of what I asked Ms. Ward about keeping your authentic voice in your creative process.
Right. So the marketing part of my storytelling would be deciding who my audience is. So depending on your story, you will need to tailor it based on who is consuming it. So if I'm telling a story to high schoolers, it's definitely not going to be the same way I tell a story to adults, because the life experience is at totally different realms. In terms of, can you tell me about like what, there's part of it that you asked about blending culture?
Yes, like blending your marketing and animation and your cultural storytelling.
Yes, so for cultural storytelling, we have similar things in common with the wider diaspora of Caribbean and African descendants across the world. But there's things that are very specific to us. And with your point about being authentic, it's you have to balance where you feel as though, am I copying something else? Is this really us? Is this mine? Or am I just tapping into what I saw like an African American doing? I can give you an example. There's KMT, which I recently learned that means kiss my teeth. Oh my gosh, my age.
Stroops?
Stroops.
Wow.
Stroops. We
That's a
call
new
it
one.
stroops. They say kiss my teeth. Jamaicans also say kiss my teeth, right? For them, they do like that, very simple. But us, we do it'll be long and drawn out, and it feels as though we could all relate to that feeling of I'm upset with something, I don't like something, so I go and strip. That's culture. To me, at least, that's culture. That's the way we move, the way we do things. But I feel like it's still relatable. So I'd never shy away from the opportunity to insert myself and my experiences into a story, because I know that even though I feel like it's very, very specific to my life, there are many people who are not in the Tortola, the Caribbean, who probably understand when I strips my teeth that it translates to XYZ. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I hope my daughter don't come telling me KMT, because I'll be like, what? Who you saying KMT to? If anyone ever saw that video, you did an animation.
Oh yeah, they
And it was
probably
like-
won't know.
Well, I'm gonna tell them. Y'all ever saw that animated video where it was like the person went out, a cartoon character, she went out, she was trying to get the internet. And then the internet, Digicel went out, Flow went out, and every time something went out, she was like, like no talking. It was just like every time there was no data, the phone wasn't working, the house internet wasn't working, and at the end of it all, when she sit down, electricity went out and she went black. No, we have to share this. Someone from the Lit Fest, please share that video, because I thought that was so hilarious while I was sitting in the dark watching it on my phone. Like, yeah, big ups BVI Electricity, please. I love you guys. So I think we're gonna be winding down, and I have my one final question, and I'd like for each of you to answer it. For the audience who are up-and-coming policy advocates, or interested in being artists, or communicators, or engineers, what have you, what advice would you give about finding and keeping your authentic voice, no matter the platform or medium?
I would say, for being authentic just means to be genuine and original. And oftentimes, like I said before, you could see a lot of creatives, they're following trends, and it feels like they're doing the same thing. But honestly, they are all being genuine and authentic because they're doing it in their own way. We all go through life, we have different experiences. We can look at the exact same movie and walk away with that movie with different emotions, feelings. And when someone asks us again, hey, what was the movie about? We're going to retell that story very differently based on what we took away from that. So even though you and your friend might create similar things, people might take away different things from it, and I don't want you to shy away from just being yourself. If it feels right for you, do it. Don't be shy, just keep trying.
Thank you. Ms. Ward?
The advice, repeat the question again, because I'm so caught up. I'm always intrigued by Ms. Turnbull.
For those in the audience who aspire to be policy advocates, artists, communicators, engineers, what advice would you give them about finding and keeping their authentic voice?
All right, so again, as Ms. Turnbull said, being authentic is being genuine. Authenticity, you also have to be credible. And have integrity, make sure that you maintain integrity. It's important that the source that you find your information to tell that story, again, that is a credible source. But in terms of giving advice, I would say not to underestimate the importance of fine-tuning your art form. I would suggest that you find the medium that can align with the art form that you're in. And I believe that that's why we have events such as this, the BVI Lit Fest, because it helps to reinforce the values or the principles of good storytelling, so that we don't have that dilution that we spoke about earlier. But I just think it's important that you not underestimate about honing your craft and to ensure that you remain genuine and credible as you tell your stories.
Thank you. And Kamal?
Check 1, 2. I approach it, when I think about authenticity, for me, it comes down to caring. In other words, being authentic means I care about something, and then I'm sort of like, I'm honoring that in my craft. So I like to approach it from what am I serving and who do I care about and what am I trying to sort of to impact. So because I collaborate with lots of different people and I have to sort of enter different stories, and it's sort of authenticity almost takes care of itself because you are a unique individual. It's like you can't, even if you try to copy something 100%, you can't really, right? It's going to end up being filtered through you. So it almost sort of takes care of itself in one way. It's just that if you're doing sort of work that you don't feel a connection to, then I don't feel that that's going to be fulfilling for you over time. But it can be magical what happens when you sort of put yourself in that collaborative mode. For example, anybody here watch the Netflix show Wednesday? Anybody seen that show? Okay, so there was a dance that was like trending on TikTok, like last year or the year before.
Similar to Thriller, right? The Thriller dance?
Right.
Whatever the rhythm.
So it was an interesting story of like how I was able to contribute to that.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, look at you.
Yes. Yeah. So what had happened? I'll tell you the story real quick. I'll tell you the story really quickly. So what happened was 12 years ago, I got the opportunity to work on Lady Gaga's album, right? To be a contributor. I've never met her, but I got the opportunity to send my ideas. So I sat down and watched a bunch of her music videos so I could get into her story, the story she was trying to tell. And she tries to make people that feel like they're not maybe mainstream, like they're a little bit weird from, what people, she tries to make them feel like you're okay. So I know she would try to, kind of go out there. So with the music, I had to try to say, let me try to make the music a little bit spooky, right? So that she could kind of get with it. And then I actually sang something with my voice, and I put her name in the chorus. Okay. So in the bridge of the song, it says, ga, 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 ga. It's a song called Bloody Mary. So it's actually my voice in the chorus of that song. That song is the song that when the lady from Wednesday, when she put out the video, a TikToker, one of you guys, took it and they put the song under it. They sped it up and they put it under her dance. And then 11 years later, it was trending on TikTok.
Oh wow!
So go figure. All right. So in saying that, it was trying to enter her story and the people that she was trying to connect with, trying to serve that the best I could, adding my originality into that. Then she did what she did, and then the song was there. Then years later, a different generation, they have a different story, a different thing going on, and they use it in a different way. Right. So it's sort of, sometimes you can't tell what's going to happen with the story. It evolves, it grows. It's like a seed that you just plant, and you can't control where it grows. So I would just say, do your best, care as much as you can, right? Think about, I give this approach to songwriting. I say, to songwrite, think about someone you care about, think about what they're feeling now, what you would like them to feel instead. So they're sad, I would like them to feel happy. And then you connect that with some type of creative concept or metaphor, So, I take an umbrella and I'm trying to talk about love. So I can be like, you can stand under my umbrella, Ella, A. And then all of a sudden you have a concept in a song. So that's sort of my wrap up on storytelling.
Nice, nice. We're time? Yeah. And we are. So I'd just like to thank all of our panelists. Our topic was, give yourselves a round of applause. I want to thank all of you for being here, Nadia, Sandra, Miss Ward, Kamal. And our topic was narrative remix, storytelling across the media. Did you all get a good idea of how they each tell their story across their different professions? Yeah, you can appreciate it and then still adapt it to where we are in this digital era. Because I see people, I'm an engineer and you're doing a TikTok video. Oh, but okay, that's interesting. You have me tapped in, right? So we're all inspired to go ahead and make a plan for what our next chapter of our journey is in the era we're in storytelling. All right. Thank you all. I have been your moderator, Adriana Salvaral. And stay tuned for the next panel. Are we taking a picture? Yeah. Okay.